Alright friends, welcome back. Today I wanted to make a video going into a very interesting topic that I actually get asked about a lot, and it's an interesting thing that I've been researching a little bit, and that is going to be the answer to the question of can you become addicted to Cialis, to Viagra, whatever it may be, whatever PDE5 inhibitor you want to talk about, can you become addicted to it? So it's become very mainstream in our community to use these compounds, right, that were initially designed for men with erectile dysfunction. And so kind of a subsequent question that many people ask is they say, well, if I'm using this every single day, if I'm maybe even using a microdose and I'm, regularly having sex with my girlfriend, is it creating a dependence? Is there an issue with dependence for this? So today, guys, I wanted to kind of break down Cialis, its mechanism of action, and kind of go into, does it create dependence? Does it create kind of any addiction potential or any addiction-based issues? With that being said, guys, let's dive right in. So when it comes to dependence and addiction, right, these are very, set and defined terms in kind of the world of addiction, right? So, you have a physical dependence on some things. And the reality is, guys, with Cialis is there's not really strong evidence to show that Cialis creates any sort of physical dependence-based issues or, things are going to down-regulate or get worse if you do not use Cialis, okay? Again, it's a PDE5 inhibitor. It's essentially, raising blood flow. That's all it's really doing, okay? So while it's, a super cool compound and it works really well for a lot of different things, that's all it's really doing. So it's not like testosterone where if you take testosterone, then you come off testosterone, your levels are suppressed. All it's doing is kind of raising blood flow, right? So from a physical standpoint, right, I really don't think there's any concern when it comes to physical dependence on it from its mechanism of action and all that good stuff. But I think from a psychological standpoint, there definitely is. And I've actually seen this with a lot of these kind of compounds, whether it's Cialis, whether it's PT141, whether it's sildenafil, Viagra, a lot of these compounds that boost sexual performance, the issue that I see is more a psychological dependence on them than actually a physical dependence. So in the next portion of this video, guys, I want to do kind of a mini rant on how some of these, sexual enhancement practices that we're doing in the biohacking space can actually create kind of some psychological based addiction. Again, not all of these compounds are made equally, so some of them definitely can have physical addiction potential risks, but there is a large psychological component, and I want to talk about it in the next kind of part of this video. Okay, so I'm going to go off track a little bit. Again, this video is going to be about Cialis, but I think this applies to Cialis and it applies to everything. Again, whether it's PT141, Cialis, Viagra, really any drug that can boost sexual performance. Now, sexual performance, especially for men, is almost a very sacred topic, right? A lot of men are very defensive about it, and no man, of course, wants to admit that he didn't, do as well as he could have in the bedroom. And so in the biohacking space, of course, there's a lot of things that we can do to improve our bedroom performance, right? Whether it's lasting longer, whether it's creating better erections, whether it's increasing our, load volume, okay? There's a lot of different things that we can do. So this has kind of created and brought up an interesting kind of conundrum, because what I've seen with a lot of guys who fall into the space and become a bit, I would say, obsessed with this space and optimizing their sexual performance a bit too much, is what happens is they kind of create they psych themselves out mentally, right? And so in their head, they think to themselves and they think, well, I didn't take my 5 milligrams of Cialis today. Now I can't have proper sex with my girlfriend. I'm going to be off. It's not going to be as good as it normally is. She's going to be disappointed in me. And it creates this kind of feedback loop of anxiety. So then when they have the anxiety and they psych themselves out before sex, anxiety is the ultimate killer of sexual performance. If you're anxious, your sexual performance will be terrible. Anxiety alone, doesn't matter how much Cialis you take, how much PT141 you take, will destroy your sexual performance. So what happens is there's this kind of psychological aspect of it where many men who use Cialis regularly kind of trick themselves into thinking that they need it, right? And so then if they try to go and have sex with their girlfriend with no Cialis, even though physically they might be totally fine and they might be in a position where they can have sex just fine. They don't need the Cialis. They create this, this kind of this image in their head where they think to themselves, oh, again, I didn't take my Cialis. I don't know what to do now. The sex is going to be as good. She's going to be disappointed in me. And then they become anxious. And then what happens, right? In the bedroom, they perform, worse. And then they think that they actually need the Cialis. So I've seen this kind of psychological dependence develop with a few things. I've seen it too with PT141. I've consulted with guys before who have come and talked to me and they've said, hey, I took this kind of sexual enhancement stack with a girl one time and we had really, really good sex, but now I feel like I need to use it every single time so I don't let her down or so I don't, make her think that I'm inadequate in the bedroom. And again, guys, I think it's very important that whenever you do anything in the biohacking space, you always have to realize that for most things, it cannot be the norm, right? You can create the best sexual enhancement stack where you're just lasting the longest, you have the best erection, you have the best sex ever, but that doesn't mean you can use and deploy that stack every single time before sex, right? That should be saved for special occasions, okay? So again, I've seen this kind of psychological dependence, and this isn't something that I feel like it's covered enough to Cialis, where again, guys think they need Cialis, okay? And they think they need it for proper sexual function, when in reality, they function sexually, just fine. So again, break yourselves out of the habit of thinking that you need Cialis or you need PT141 or you need some crazy sex pharmacology every single time you go to the bedroom with a girl. Again, sex pharmacology is super cool. It's super fun to do, but it doesn't need to be in every single time kind of type thing, okay? If you're a healthy guy and your hormones are good and you're at a healthy body weight and you sleep good and your stress is under control, there is no reason why you cannot have great sex without using any sort of pharmacology. Of course, if you're using pharmacology to get your health or your hormones under control, that's a bit different. But again, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to have great sex without any Cialis, any PT141, any Depoxetine, any whatever, and have a great time, okay? So the kind of key point, the kind of key takeaway of this video, guys, is do not develop that psychological reliance on Cialis, okay? So my biggest tip for this and what I would say to do that I think is the most important is take breaks from Cialis, right? Have sex with your partner, not on Cialis, and show yourself kind of mentally that you can perform just fine without it, that you don't need it, that you don't have to have it, that you're good without it. And then from there, you'll realize that you don't actually need it. You can take it when you need it. You can get the pumps in the gym. You can, get the other benefits from it, but you're not creating that kind of psychological dependence. I know it might not seem like a massive issue, but again, I've consulted with some guys about this and I've kind of talked with some guys about this, and it actually kind of can create a bit of an issue, right? Because again, once you get psyched out, once you have one bad sexual experience in the bedroom, it can easily, just like how anxiety does, it can easily snowball itself into more and more kind of sexual-based issues, okay? So I wanted to make this video. I think it's an important topic to talk about. Again, from a physical component, Cialis is not addictive really at all. It's not going to create dependence. There shouldn't be any downregulation of anything. But from that psychological level, it's very important to remind yourself that you do not need Cialis to have good sex if you're healthy, if your hormones are good, if you're sleeping good, if your stress is controlled. With that being said, guys, I hope this video was helpful. Again, I think this is super important for a lot of people to hear, especially with all the, discussion in the space about sexual enhancement through pharmacology. Don't become reliant on it. And for all of your kind of biohacking needs, guys, head over to biohackingyou.com. You can find articles, courses, sources for everything, literally everything you need, right? Everyone, like a lot of the questions I get, a lot of the stuff is on the site. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And until I see you guys again, have a good one.